So let's actually start out with some international investing conversation since we are in Africa and we got to thank the good folks of Benin. But this is interesting from a business standpoint. So we actually met with the president of Benin and very gracious with his time. And he, well, we knew this before, but we met with a few different people from their administration. They have a program that allows people of African descent to have citizenship. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to attract more foreign investment, specifically Black American investment into the country. So, Market Monday is a show that we talk about stocks and stuff like that a lot, but a lot of times people are interested in other forms. So I think it's good to kind of keep them abreast of what's going on internationally. And that, like I said, that was a high level conversation that we actually had with a president. The first actually the first president that we've ever met with.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So first head of state that we had a conversation with, and he was very big on that as far as like, spreading the message, saying that, this is something. And then he also said like, okay, like what are best practices when dealing on the continent, which we kind of went over before, as far as like, do your due diligence, have a lawyer, make sure working with the right people, stuff like that. But
how do you know if, really quick, if they're the right people? Because there's so many people that are going to Africa and acting like they are an advocate for the continent. How do you filter out what's real versus what's fake?
Well, for me personally, I always like to see proof of concept. A lot of people say that they do something. That's why even people that we work with, as far as Alvin and Kwame, like we got to see their actual physical office, a physical newspaper that they print, right? A physical recording studio, a physical, like these are things that, to me, I feel like if you are somebody that's portraying yourself as doing something major, you should at least be able to show somebody something tangible as opposed to just ideas. A lot of people will just spin ideas and words.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that to me, that's that. And then of course, as far as I'm old school, really, like I asked for referrals. That's how I was like, what I mean? Like I granted we are in a little bit more, we're in a little bit more privileged situation because we have a lot of relationships. So, we have the ability to like, but no matter who you are, you can ask different people and network. And if 10 people have the same story about somebody, then that usually good or bad, by the way, good or bad, by the way. Right. So that to me is something that I think is, and then also doing your own personal research. That's the good thing. That is a lot of like, okay, for instance, if you want to buy real estate, right, in Nigeria, right, there's a lot of research that you can do yourself on even ChatGPT, asking it. Okay,
GPT and Perplexity for sure.
What are the real estate laws? What are the property taxes? What's the biggest issues that are faced by real estate investors? Like, you know what I mean? So just like stocks, you know what I mean? You have to educate yourself. But man, as far as investing for investors, not only is I think everybody at this point knows that there's opportunity in Africa, right? That's pretty obvious. But they definitely, like countries like Benin and other countries, they're making it a main emphasis to target Black Americans.
Yeah, I mean, most of you probably saw Ciara here. Well, Ciara in Benin a week ago. You saw Ludacris and Gabon. Even Spike Lee has been named the ambassador to Benin. So you're starting to see the traction. I think everything Shadi said is 100% spot on. You ask, but you also become very observant. One of the things I like to do when we travel to foreign countries is I just look at signs. Right. And if I look at developments, you start to see the same name over and over and over again. Now it's like, all right, well, those people are doing something. Right. And if you ask around, you figure out who's government funded projects and who has private funding for their projects. And then you just start asking and start compiling, you start seeing names. Then you can kind of get a sense of like who's who. Right. Like that proof of concept is important. We were just in Benin. And as I'm riding around, I'm seeing a billboard for a stadium. Okay, I saw the name. Okay, somebody is building an office building. All right, it's the same name. You start to put the pieces together, see who the movers and shakers inside of the private sector And then obviously you ask around, and luckily for us, we have resources that we can talk to who's in government and what are the projects they're working on. But you got to be observant. A lot of times people get in their Uber, or they get in their car service, and they're right into their phones. And you're missing everything that's you're driving past.
Talk to the driver and get their perspective on what's going on locally.
The drivers know, because they're going through those routes and they live in the areas. Obviously, they know the local governance of things that are happening. You got to be watch everything. Right? Watch all the signs, watch all the billboards, because it could be telling you something.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, just wanted to get that little, and then I will say one thing too, that where we're at right now is a little different because there is a language barrier.
Yes. So
you got to be aware of that too. Like, these are the first countries that we went to where they actually speak French as primary language. So in Cote d'Ivoire and in Benin and, a lot of other countries, they are French. They were former French colonies, so they speak French. So that's something to be aware of. Right. Mm-hmm. There is a language barrier usually, so knowing that, as opposed to a country like Ghana, which is an English country, and Nigeria is an English country, and Kenya is an English country, and Rwanda used to be a French speaking country, and they switched over to English. So that's important too. Knowing where you're going as far as stuff like that is nuanced, but it makes a big difference.
Which you can research in Perplexity, ChatGPT 04. If you ask for a thorough breakdown, because I was looking last night, it's like, top out search for the video. I said, wait, what happened to Lauren?
Yeah, we had that conversation about AI in the sense where that language barrier is soon going to be eradicated. Where we're going to have the agent where we translate on our chest, and it's a chip or it's a device, and it speaks in our language, and it converts it.
Or maybe Meta. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe.
Well, somebody's gonna do it. It's gonna happen in the next 3 to 5 years. But you can see how easy AI could step into a place that was, hey, what do we do here if I don't have a translator, right? I can't. I mean, people use Google Translate, but it's still through the phone. When you can actually use your voice and speak in your language and have it converted and it comes back to you, that's gonna be a game changer, man. I'm looking forward to that.
You guys are giving a stat before about how young the continent is. Are there any companies that are not publicly traded, but you think will be in maybe 4 or 5 years or 10 years that you think will be a powerhouse that you've seen so far?
Well, one of the biggest countries in East Africa is called M-Pesa, and they actually do the mobile phone payment transfer. So they were real big. I think they actually came out even before Cash App. So it's a necessity as far as the technology in Africa. A lot of times is a necessity. Meaning, if you live in a rural village, right, you might not have access to banks. Like the banking desert, like we talk about banking deserts in America, like there might be a 50-mile radius where there's not a physical bank. So that's why it became very important to kind of have that mobile payment processing component, and they actually been going crazy. They're all over the continent now. And then there's other companies similar to that. I think they're actually the biggest on the continent. But we actually went to their offices, their corporate headquarters, when we were in Kenya, and they was telling us the story of how they got started and stuff like that. But I had heard about them on 60 Minutes years ago. Okay. So that's just one company that, like I said, we actually met, but there's there's opportunities for technology all over the place because, man, the world is moving so quick. And like you said, the population is so young that obviously the young people is going to be easier. It's easier for them to learn the technology, right? As opposed to trying to teach a generation that's 80 years old. So they're already open to the technology, and they grew up on the technology as far as their phones and stuff like that. So their way of thinking, even crypto. A lot of countries tried to ban crypto at first. Like I think Nigeria tried to ban it, and they start their own, and then they realized like you can't stop it. You can't. There's nothing you can do to stop it. So crypto is real big on the continent also. You hear a lot of people talking about crypto, Bitcoin, stuff like that. So
yeah, I think it's publicly traded, but if you go anywhere in Africa, you're gonna see MTN. Like in terms of communication, in terms of internet service. It's everywhere, right? I'm even looking up right now. It says that they own 58% of the internet service here in Ivory Coast. They are everywhere. So if we're talking about connectivity, right? Think of it as your Verizon, or I don't even your T-Mobile for
molded in one.
Every country that we've been in, especially Rwanda, we're now here. We've seen MTN, Ghana for sure. You see that yellow MTN everywhere. So that's a company with the expansion of technology throughout. I mean, it's a large continent. Like you said, the younger people are using it. They have mobile devices. MTN is one of those ones that's like they're in prime position.
Yeah, and from a legacy standpoint, United Bank of Africa, look at them as like a Chase-esque. Their stock has been doing great the last 4 or 5 years. So there are some international investments you can look at in Africa. I know we haven't talked about a lot of them, or they may not be well known, but there are a few companies there, I think, over the next 5 or 6 years, as the continent continues to scale in terms of capital that's coming in, that I think will be ripe for great growth over the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I saw something interesting. We were on a plane coming here today, and I'm sitting next to a gentleman, and he has his book out, and I looked, and it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, wow. Like, this is the beginning seeds of financial education. Like, we all know that point when we discovered Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
And so think about where we were then, to see a gentleman sitting next to me on the plane, don't know him from anywhere, to see that that's the book that he has and he's reading. I was like, this is like the seeds are being planted here, and hopefully, you deserve to be rich to be his next book. But it's happening, and the population is ready for it.